If you're new to this channel, my name is Brian Mounts and I run topoffmycoffee.com. Today I want to talk to you about Keurig coffee makers. More specifically, I don't want to talk about how they work or which ones you should buy. I want to talk about whether or not they make good coffee or not. Now, many of my subscribers have seen an earlier video of mine about the mistakes people make when brewing with Keurig K-Cup coffee makers. There's a number of mistakes that people make all the time that help their coffee to taste not its best. But generally speaking, Keurig coffee makers can make pretty good coffee. Not amazing, not great. You're never really going to get a truly spectacular cup of coffee out of a Keurig, but they can pretty much all make good coffee if you do a handful of things right. Now, the problem with most people is we buy cheap K-Cups. This is an example of just a store K-Cup. If you were to cut this open, dump the coffee grind out, you would see that it's pretty old. It's got a little bit of a stale smell to it. There's only about 11 grams of coffee in this, which isn't really enough to make a big cup of coffee. For a full-bodied cup of coffee out of this, you're only looking at about a 6.5 ounce cup of coffee, which is pretty small. Not only are these small, but you're brewing through plastic. And in some cases, especially on the low end of the K-Cup spectrum, the plastic used is suspect. It's a lower quality plastic. Some of them you can even get kind of a plasticky taste in your cup after you've brewed. That is unacceptable in my opinion. I buy a lot of the Rev coffee. If you open these up, you'll find that you're brewing through higher quality paper. The plastic, I've never gotten kind of a plasticky taste out of these things. Plus you get about 15% more grind in the cup itself, which makes it a little bit nicer because you can kind of get a full-bodied 8-ounce cup of coffee out of this. Whereas these cheaper ones, you're kind of more limited to that 6-ounce size. Other options is you can get some of the K-Cups that don't even have the plastic cup on the bottom. This is a Boyd's coffee. There are a number of other brands that do the exact same thing. These are kind of billed as eco-friendly, but they taste better too, simply because it's not brewing through plastic. So there's a variety of reasons to opt for K-Cups like this. Other options are to go in the more premium category of K-Cups. You can get your Illies, your Death Wishes. There's a handful of other brands out there. Where your per K-Cup cost is going to be somewhat pricey. If you just go to the grocery store, like in my grocery store, I can get like a pack of 12 of these things for like 15 bucks. So that gets pretty spendy. I do tend to buy these in bulk, so I get the price a little bit lower. I've got a video about buying premium K-Cups in bulk linked up here and down in the description below if you'd like to take a look at that. Now, K-Cups aside, the actual choice of K-Cup that you use isn't the only factor. To some extent, some of these machines are better than others, but really they're all kind of the same. They just pump water and push it through the K-Cup. The cheapest machines do the exact same thing that the most expensive machines do. The difference, though, on the higher end of the machines is they have a strong button which allows the water flow to go through the K-Cup slower. So this right here is a K-Duo Plus. There's also a regular K-Duo. Both of them have that strong button. The K-Elite has a strong button. The K-Select has a strong button. Lots of the higher end machines have strong buttons. And in fact, some of the non-Keurig branded K-Cup coffee makers have strong buttons too. I know Hamilton Beach on their Flex Brew, they have a premium version that has a strong button. They all slow the water flow down. So if you want to brew a better cup of coffee and you just want to stick with a K-Cup, use a quality K-Cup, use the strong button to slow the brew process down and stay away from the largest cup size settings. Now, if you really don't want to be brewing 6 and 8 ounce cups of coffee all day long and you want to brew something bigger, there are other options to do that. And that's what I'd like to go into a little bit more in depth in this video. Like I said, this is the K-Duo Plus. The K-Duo Plus has the option of using an entire filter basket and brewing a pot of coffee. Now that's great because if you want to do that, you can use your own coffee grind. So you can go and take whole beans, grind them yourself, stick them in here, And that way you can ensure that the coffee beans that you're using are the freshest, and you can fit a lot more grind in here. So you can get a full-bodied pot of coffee much more easily than you can by brewing small cups over and over and over. If you don't want a full pot of coffee and you want just one large cup of coffee, then Keurig makes the My K-Cup. This is a reusable K-Cup that you take the lid off and you can stick your own grind. So again, the same process. You can grind it, put it in here, put the lid on, stick it in there, and you can actually brew a slightly larger cup of coffee. The thing is, this My K-Cup contraption will hold about 18 to 19 grams of ground coffee. That, if you do your math, is significantly more than 11 to 13 grams. Usually with this, when I fill it up, I brew a 10-ounce cup of coffee, although some people would still brew a 12-ounce cup and probably not tell the difference, especially if they're using good grind. Now, I've got other videos on this channel showing you how to use that, and I recommend you take a look at them. I'm going to have them linked above and down below in the description. These devices right here are very affordable. They work in all of the Keurig machines. If you've got the new K-Supreme or the K-Supreme Plus, then you're going to have to keep an eye out for the 5-point system. There are two versions of this. They're both called Reusable My K-Cup, but the new design is the one that works with the 5-point injection system. If you have one of the older machines, this is not old, but it is one of the older machines, it only uses a single-point injection. So either My K-Cup design will work in that, or any of the others, like the K-Minis, the K-Slims, all of those. I would recommend, if you want to brew a very good cup of coffee, that you get yourself fresh coffee beans. Now, depending on where you live, you might have a roaster in town. It's best to go to the roaster and buy beans that they have roasted themselves. Typically, roasteries will sell coffee beans that they roasted that are a few days to maybe a couple weeks old at the most. The optimal time for fresh coffee beans is probably in that 4-day range, because once you roast a bean, CO2 kind of emits off of it for a while. And after a few days, that's the optimal time. Now, again, when you're going to be grinding, you want to grind just before you brew. So you'll buy your beans, whether it's from a roastery or even just at the supermarket. I mean, it really could just be a bag of whole beans that you buy at the supermarket. It's going to be better than the pre-ground stuff. But you're going to grind it, and then you're going to scoop it into this. Now, you can use just a regular spoon to scoop and pour. That I find is messy. I recommend using this little contraption, which I bought on Amazon for a rounding error. Like, it wasn't very much at all. Like, this is one of the cheapest things I've ever bought on Amazon. But anyway, you can scoop with that side, put the funnel down, and then funnel it in. It's really easy, and it keeps things from making a big mess. You stick your lid on, you pop it in there, and you're going to brew it on. For this, you can go to a slightly larger size, but you're always going to use the strong button. And what I would recommend, what I've recommended in the past, this isn't going to apply to everybody, but make sure your water tastes good. I can't stress this enough. The water is the bulk of your coffee. So if your water doesn't taste very good out of the tap, make sure that you're using filtered water, bottled water, or, I don't know, magically blessed water or something. We, here at my house, we're on a well, and so I don't filter my water. Our water is pretty pure when it comes up. I do have to descale more often, but the water tastes great. So if your water doesn't taste particularly good, do something about it, because no matter how many inputs you change, if the water doesn't taste good, your coffee is going to suffer a little bit. Typically, when you're brewing through regular K-Cups, you're brewing through paper. It's filtered coffee. Typically, when you use a filter basket like this, we put paper filters in there. Now, paper filters are going to filter out the bulk of the coffee oils and all of the fine sediment that's in the coffee. That is normal. That's like drip coffee. Again, I got another video about the difference between drip coffee and Keurig coffee. But the thing is, for me and lots of other people, filter coffee is great, but I actually prefer unfiltered coffee. That would be French press, that would be mocha, that would be espresso. Anything where the coffee doesn't travel through paper would be unfiltered coffee. Now you can replace these baskets with little filter screen baskets. This doesn't require a paper filter. The coffee will pass through and you'll get some of the micro fines and you'll get some of the coffee oils too. That just sits in there in place of a paper filter. In the K-Cup compartment, you're brewing through paper every single time you use a K-Cup. However, if you're using one of these, you're not. This would be unfiltered coffee. This is a mesh screen and fines and oils will go through it. If you're using one of these, you are drinking unfiltered coffee through a Keurig coffee machine. I think it tastes better. It's going to be more of a personal preference thing. I want to invite you to go down into the description below. I've got a linked post over to my website where I go into some of these concepts a little bit more in depth. Go ahead and take a look at that. I don't want to sell you on any products, but I do get questions all the time about where you get these things. If you have a Duo, basically the K-Duo series of Keurig machines are the only modern machines that allow you to brew a pot of coffee. So there are filter baskets that you can buy separately for the K-Duo and the K-Duo Essentials. The K-Duo Plus comes with this, so you don't have to buy it. But you do have to buy the My K-Cup or some of the off-brand versions of the My K-Cup. Take a look down below. Please hit the like button if you found this video helpful, and I hope to see you in the next video.